Morning, Dave. How are you?
Doing well, Eric. How about yourself?
Really well. And you and I were just talking about something we think is very relevant to the home buying experience, and that is who's on your team and who's important to be on your team, why it matters, and how that impacts your ability to successfully transact in real estate.
Absolutely. And especially it's like, well, when do you put your team together? When is it important? Is it after I find the house I want? Is it, after I want to make an offer? Like when do I put the team together and who should be on it?
So sometimes there's this shoot, ready, aim, and we see that. And sometimes, it takes a little bit to get things recalibrated. We love it when people decide that they would like to be prepared to successfully buy a home in today's real estate marketplace, particularly because, Dave, in our marketplace, really in probably the last decade, has it been less competitive when you go out and try to make an offer on a house, or has it been more competitive? Are you the buyer, doing this all in a vacuum, or is the marketplace providing competition for these homes?
Good question, but I would say I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I've never in my career seen a more competitive housing market than I have today. And there's a couple of things going on there. Number one, there's an inventory shortage right now because as we've discussed before, there's a lot of people locked into their homes because of their 3 or 3.5% interest rate they have, and I'm not willing to give that up. So there's less inventory for sale on the market. And the other thing is, and we see this all the time, people are losing out on an opportunity to buy a house because there's so many cash buyers in the market right now.
So, what I think you're telling me is coming together and being the most prepared you can be for the home buying experience and actually successfully obtaining the home that you'd like to buy. That requires preparation.
Absolutely. It's the old nobody plans to fail, they fail to plan, right? But
Yep.
I mean, that is, you should be fully prepared once you find that home or even the area that you want to buy in and you kind of narrow it down. You can have, 20 properties in your mind of the ones that you are interested in. But if you don't go in with a solid plan and a solid team, there's a high likelihood that you're not going to get that home that you want.
And you may even be attracted to homes that don't really fit your needs because you haven't talked it through with anyone. And so, what we'd like to suggest is building your team, your home buying team, that is super important. Dave, who do you think should be on that team?
Well, number one, and not by order of importance necessarily, but number one is a solid mortgage advisor. And reason being is that again, you want to sit down and talk to somebody about your financial plan for that home purchase, right? Both a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And you might find a house that you love and you walk into it and there's no possible way that you could qualify for that home financially. And so I think first and foremost, you really need to have a solid mortgage advisor to sit down with them and go through what your financial plan is, go through your income and assets and tell you exactly how much you could qualify for in today's interest rate market. And what you really need from that mortgage advisor is a solid pre-approval letter, not a pre-qual letter that says, oh, I met Eric Wiley. He's a really nice guy. And yes, he can qualify for, this much money at this interest rate. But you really need a pre-approval letter and a mortgage advisor that can actually run your credit, verify your income, get it submitted to an underwriter for really a pre-approval. And the likelihood that you get your offer accepted, if you have a solid pre-approval from a lender, not a pre-qual, is going to go a long way and a lot higher likelihood that you get that house that you want.
I think that is so key because your ability to buy a house is determined by you. Which house you select is determined by you and maybe another professional that's in the space. But really quickly, when you get that pre-approval letter, you're good here or anything less than that. So now you know your bracket. Now you know what you're going to accomplish in terms of I can afford that on a monthly basis or I can afford that on a down payment basis and a loan amount basis. And so the figuring out what your market looks like in the real estate area that you're looking to buy, that is super helpful and powerful as a home buyer.
Absolutely. And obviously, working with a qualified professional real estate agent is huge because they know that market specifically. I mean, it depends. Like you can be moving from the same neighborhood that you own in or renting in today. And so you know the neighborhood and things like that. But a real estate agent can help you with, what are the schools in the system? They may know the listing agent on the property that you're looking at, and probably be able to provide invaluable insight on the details of the home. They may know some things that are going on within the neighborhood that you should be aware of, or that are good or bad or what have you. So having a qualified real estate agent that works in that market is extremely important.
And they may know the momentum of what's going on in that marketplace too. So this area is getting a little hotter. This area is more mature. If you're going to be a long-term hold, it has these amenities in the local marketplace. If this is a springboard or a shorter term acquisition, this one's going to do likely better, from a rate of appreciation, or when you want to sell, it'll sell faster. All these things come into play and really matter for what your own home buying experience looks like. It helps to have be armed with all this information.
Absolutely. And, as you've heard before, there's no I in team, right? And I just think it's extremely difficult to get into a real estate purchase transaction without having your team together and trying to do it by yourself.
Now, who are the other people that might be important on your team if you're looking to buy real estate?
Well, I mean, there could be a whole lot of different people. I mean, you could be working with a financial advisor where you have your assets located. They could potentially give you advice on how much money you should be putting down in the home versus keeping in other asset classes. Again, that's going to depend on how much you can qualify for. So I would say financial advisor. Obviously family is a big one, right? You want to make sure that your family is on the same team as you are as far as, what you're looking for and things like that. And, I don't think it hurts. I think some people get bad advice sometimes from family. Like if you listen to Uncle Joe that, hasn't bought a house in 50 years and says, oh, you should do this or that. I mean, that's why I think really the best thing to do is start with professionals that work in the real estate and real estate finance industry, because they can give you the most detail on, what's going on in that market and qualification, things like that. And what about you? What other recommendations do you have for people on your team?
Well, I was going to say some people are surprised that an insurance agent might be a really good contact to know to describe what different types of homes cost from an insurance standpoint. But today, some marketplaces, it's not the norm, but there are some marketplaces that have experienced natural type issues that you could call them disasters, or kind of large scale events that have caused homeowners to either have to pay more for the insurances on those properties located in those areas, or maybe even have fewer options in terms of what insurance is available. And I think it makes sense to have that person be a part of your team early on as well.
Absolutely. That's a good point too. Yeah, I mean, it's trying to get as many people that are aware of what's going on in that local marketplace and just drawing off of their experience, right? Again, I think the worst thing you can do is try to do it on your own. When you're surrounded by people that have the knowledge, it could be that insurance agent just bought a home in the same area, and can give you the ins and outs. Or, if you don't have a good real estate referral, you can get that from your mortgage advisor. You can get that from your insurance agent. If you don't have a good insurance agent, you can get that from your mortgage advisor or your real estate agent. So, it's a really good reciprocal industry. And I think just having more people, more qualified people on your team, the better.
Well, and I think the opposite of that could be the internet. The internet makes access to information very easy, but access to quality information that matches up very well with what you're trying to do in a specific marketplace, that takes local people. And you don't have to do it that way. You can do it the DIY, version of doing some of these things, but that can lead you down dead ends sometimes when talking with professionals gets you pointed in the right direction much more quickly, maybe more successfully, and certainly with more awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would leave the media on the bench because a lot of the things that we're seeing and hearing in the media these days is really negative and may not be completely truthful information. And so again, I just thinking getting together with people that have local knowledge and experience in that market that you're looking at is really the best way to go. And getting facts behind everything as far as what's happening.
Well, I've been in the business for almost 29 years, and you might be a year or two longer than I am. And between both of us, I think the media has said for most of our careers, buying a house is a bad idea. Don't overspend. Don't do this. Don't do that. The people that have the most net worth over my 30 years of being in this business, they own homes. They own sometimes more than one piece of real estate. And the bad advice was that you should just wait. And just waiting puts you in that renter's game, puts you in the limited ability to build assets through real estate. And I mean, that's just such a powerful thing is to avoid what the media is saying about real estate and about interest rates, because most of the time it's sensationalism. They're looking for this volcano to blow up in real estate or something, and almost all the time it's incorrect.
Absolutely. No, and there, I mean, your kids grew up in a house that you own. Mine did as well. I personally have a huge pride of ownership. I like doing things around my house or working on it, and I certainly wouldn't do the same thing if I was renting something. So, and again, not to say that home ownership is for everybody, because I think there are circumstances where renting is the right idea. But in general, I think owning a home is a big value emotionally and financially.
I very much agree with that statement. I think that's very true. And I think, there's and some people also look at just from the cost of owning, renting, owning. You can maybe spend a little less in rent, but maybe you don't have a garage. Maybe you don't have the storage for your camping gear. Maybe you don't have the bikes, all this kind of stuff. And so it just is apples and oranges in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and we got off track a little bit as far as the drafting the team for the transaction stuff. But again, back to renting versus owning. I mean, the other thing is too is that when you own a home, you're in control. When you're renting a home, the landlord's in control. So they can kick you out after they give you notice. They can increase your rents year over year and things like that. Where when you own your home, you're in control of your asset, your house that you own.
Absolutely. And having a good team can help paint that picture and fill in the blanks and answer questions. The other thing about having a great team is probably the questions you have, other people have had over time for that team member, and they know how to answer the question. And they probably also know that if you have this question, you might have these range of questions also, and to cover those in part of the conversation so that you get a more full and complete experience.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing too on the referral side and people being on your team, so the other thing I've seen in my career too is that, there can be some lifelong relationships that form out of these, relationships that start with a mortgage advisor or a realtor. And, speaking personally for somebody that's moving to a new area that I don't know, like I'm the guy that I've been in the same area for, 50 plus years, and I know everybody, right? I know everybody, I know the mechanics and things like that. I'm moving to a new area. I don't know anybody. And the person that's really helping me more than anybody else right now is my realtor I'm working with, So it's like, I don't know where to go for a barber. It's like, oh, I got a great person, and so all of those relationships start to build on each other. And again, they can turn into, lifelong relationships and really reciprocation, regardless of what your business is.
Great points. Well, Dave, this was a really good conversation. I appreciate it.
Likewise, Eric, appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Looking forward to it.
Take care.